I'm Becca Koch. I'm at Duke. I work with Dr. Priya Kishnani's team, who spoke just right before Samantha. And I'm just going to briefly mention our natural history study and why it's important to have that for our deeper understanding of GSD4, including APBD. So for those of you in the US, but I think this is applicable for all the regulatory agencies across the world, this is from the FDA, or the US Food and Drug Administration, and they say that a natural history study collects information about the natural history of a disease in the absence of an intervention. So natural history information is not usually available or is incomplete for many and most rare diseases, and therefore it's particularly needed for these diseases. This has been a huge barrier for a lot of clinical trials and just in general for understanding the disease and how to actually treat it. And so why are they important? Well, they provide details of how a disease affects people with, oh, sorry, I was just seeing an alert. I'm just going to ignore it. Okay. How a disease affects people with the disorder. So actually just telling us information. So even some of the questions that are coming through the chat, I think a lot of these have been seen in our natural history study here at Duke, and really tell us more details that even if they're not published yet, we can try and get out to the community so that people can better understand the disease. They also help identify what unmet needs exist. So what is not currently being addressed by the current management strategies and how patients are being cared for. And they also help researchers understand disease progression. In a perfect world, a lot of the research that is being done would be done by the clinicians that are treating the patients. But there's also a lot of researchers that aren't necessarily the clinicians or the physicians seeing the patients, and they're the ones doing some of the animal model research and some of the cell research. And so we need to be able to communicate together and, help those researchers fully understand the disease, so those treatments that they're developing are actually going to address the disease fully. And they also support the development of treatments and therapies. So not just, all this knowledge, but also this is something that the regulatory agencies are going to need when developing treatments and see or approving treatments and seeing, okay, is it really helping the disease? What would we be seeing change or, get better if this treatment or therapy is really working? So I've put a QR code here for our natural history study. It is international. It's done completely remotely, so there's no visits to Duke or the US involved. And I did want to mention it also includes deceased individuals. So if you do have a family member or someone who is deceased from this disease, we do collect that information because we're still trying to better understand the disease fully, not just from those who are alive. And so again, that information's here. You can also email me. And I briefly wrote down from that poll before of the barriers for, how or why people wouldn't necessarily be enrolled in natural history studies. And one of them is understanding research, that a couple of you said is a big barrier. That is definitely something I know some of you already have talked to me on the phone or over email. I'm more than happy to explain this research and also how it compares to other research studies out there. And also the time. I know it is a big effort, but I hope because it's all done remotely, we do try and handle a lot of it on our end. It's looking at medical records. So we have a whole team that I get the pleasure of representing today that, can assist with all the time that it takes to get a lot of those medical records. And then I just wanted to say, Dr. Kishnani already spoke before me, but Duke and I know many other institutions as well, they remain committed to helping all patients with any form of GSD4. So I know we're based in the Department of Pediatrics, but we are committed to helping all individuals. That includes adults. And so here I just get the pleasure of representing a few people, but we have a whole team, including our lab team that we work with, where we have the animal model investigating treatments, and then we also have our clinical team who's looking at the clinical natural history of the disease.